Hello, we are here for the special board meeting of the Willoughby-Eastlake Schools Board of Education at 35353 Curtis Boulevard in Eastlake, Ohio. It is 8:02. Mr. Charnella, will you call the roll?
Dr. Beal?
Here.
Mr. Jones?
Here.
Mr. Murar?
Here.
Mr. Roskis?
Here.
Mrs. Zern?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay, we really only have one item on the agenda tonight, a resolution for a non-teacher reduction in force. Do I hear a motion? Mr. Murar? Thank you, Mr. Murar. Do I hear a second?
Mr. President, I will second the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Roskis. Is there any discussion?
The only thing that I would say, Mr. President, is this list and making this decision is a very difficult decision to make, knowing that it impacts the lives of a lot of our employees that have done nothing except be dedicated employees. So that is a very difficult decision. But ultimately, we're the fiscal agents of taxpayer dollars, and we have to be responsible. Those aren't our dollars, they're the taxpayers' dollars, and so we did the very best we could to keep as many people gainfully employed as we could, but we simply do not, by virtue of being remote, simply do not have the need for some positions regardless of how creative we could be.
So we've kept as many people on the payroll as we can.
We've kept as many on the payroll as we could
And-
justify.
And we're planning on bringing people back as early as possible.
That's correct. And perhaps, our target date again is January 19, but that could be modified if our numbers change, which is just a good segue, if I could, just share some numbers just so people are aware of where we stand. The numbers came out today, and the CDC guideline is when you have 200 exposed people out of every 100,000, that's a great risk of spread in schools. They determine that that's a number, that's the tipping point. So just a few weeks ago, we were under 50. Cuyahoga County is at 645 per 100,000. Geauga County is 563 per 100,000. And Lake County is 1,032 per 100,000 people. We currently have, at 4:27 p.m., which is what our last time our dashboard was updated, at 4:27 p.m. we had 17 active student cases, 25 staff cases, and 42 active district cases. Since 4:27, 3 more have come in, 2 student active cases and an additional active staff case. Those are not quarantined, those are people that are COVID positive. So initially, you heard me say, I felt like we should keep our schools open because we weren't seeing spread from student to student, staff to student, or student to staff. In athletics, we weren't seeing spread inside of our athletic teams, but all that has changed over the last 2 weeks, and we are seeing all those exchanges happening. As you know, Cuyahoga County Board of Health issued a letter to all the schools in Cuyahoga County, which are meeting, they meet less indicators than we do, and they have a lower ratio per 100,000 than we do. And their recommendation was to close all of Cuyahoga County universities and public schools. So how those schools respond, I'm not sure, but I can tell you that of the 6 indicators, which was announced today, we meet all 6, which moves us to the high priority red, which basically means we should be purple right now. And if that doesn't change between now and next Thursday, Lake County will be purple. So that's just where we are, and necessitates a need for closure of our schools, which most unfortunately puts a lot of employees without viable, meaningful work to perform.
Any other discussion?
So can I ask, how was the list of employees or this reduction in force generated?
Mr. Murphy?
Sure. We have multiple employee groups on that list, so our student monitors and noon aides would be a large portion because they really wouldn't have anything to do without kids in school. Then we looked at certain custodians and decided that we could pretty much manage with just the head custodian at each building, the plant supervisor. So then we laid off the rest. Food service, kind of the same concept. Kept the kitchen manager and laid off the rest because we felt like we could manage with one person. And then we looked at parapros and just kept who we felt like we needed according to their IEPs. And then finally we looked at the secretary group and kept our principal secretaries at each building, but laid off just about all of our administrative secretaries, all the other secretaries in the building. So there was a method to all of it. And then in terms of determining who, then that was just following all the rules of each negotiated agreement, and mostly driven by seniority.
Thank you. Hearing no other discussion, Mr. Charnella?
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Murrar?
Yes.
Mr. Roskis?
Yes.
Mrs. Zern?
Abstain.
Dr. Beal?
Yes.
Passes 4-0.
As that is the only item on the agenda tonight, I would look for a motion to close the meeting.
Mr. President,
Mr. Jones?
I motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Do I hear a second? Mr. Murhar?
Second?
Thank you, Mr. Murhar. Any discussion? Mr. Charnella?
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Murrar?
Yes.
Mr. Roskis?
Yes.
Mrs. Zern?
Yes.
Dr. Beal?
Yes.
We are adjourned at 8:09.